Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October 2014 Professor Messer A+ Study Group. It is our live event we do once a month where I take all of the questions you're sending to me and then I create some pop quizzes around it. If you're someone who takes my daily pop quiz that arrives in your email inbox or it stops into your Twitter feed or you're seeing it on Facebook, then you'll be right at home. I put together a number of those today based on the questions that you have sent me, and we're going to step right through them. I'm going to try to give you some questions to trip you up or at least get you thinking to see if you really are ready to take that A+ exam. There's a lot going on here at Messer Studios, the world headquarters here. There's quite a bit of things happening, so I hope to have some new things to show you next month. There's quite a bit of projects going on. In the meantime, of course, you're here for the study group, and we couldn't do this without you. It's your support of what we do here with our A+ training course that, of course, you can look at absolutely free. Every minute of every video is available to watch on my website at freeaplus.com, or you just go to the Professor Messer website and it pulls down all the menus at the top. You can pull down and do that as well. There is also calls that I'll be taking in the second half of the show, so you'll be able to see those calls, or I'll be able to see you pop up, and we'll talk face-to-face, if you will, over the telephone live. Those numbers are on the Professor Messer website at professormesser.com/live, where you should be watching this. If you're watching this over on the YouTube side, you also may want to go over to the Professor Messer website because there is a live chat right there at the bottom that I will be looking at your questions there as well. If you'd like to follow what we do, and you'd like to even help what we do, one of the great ways to do that is through YouTube. You go to professormesser.com/YouTube. And if you subscribe to my channel, I will be eternally grateful for all of that. We're now we're creeping up on 100,000 subscribers to that channel. It is amazing, and we'd love to have you as part of that. Of course, my Twitter feed is out there, professormesser.com/Twitter. And I always like to remind everyone that if you would like to get some money off of the vouchers that you're purchasing for taking your A+ exam, your Network Plus, any of the CompTIA exams, you can go to professormesser.com/vouchers. We can take 10% right off the top of that. Don't pay full price for your vouchers. Just go out and get the discount code and use that. Everybody loves a discount. If you already have your A+ certification, of course, you can certainly get credits, continuing education units, for watching this. And later on in the broadcast, I will give you a code word that you can then send to me, and I will certify you via an email that says, yes, indeed, you are here, because you will know those secret phrases, the phrase that pays. If you're watching for that, and you can see, it's hard to see on this particular screen, but you can see on this particular view that the CEU, you get 1 CEU for every hour, and for A+, you can accumulate up to 4 CEUs towards your recertification if you're somebody who is collecting those CEUs. Sorry, you can't look at all of my study groups and get all the credits you need, but you can get at least 4 of those. I also want to thank folks that are also part of what we do offline. Of course, you can watch all the videos online, but of course, I want to make you aware that if you're someone who goes off the grid, you're off the internet, or if just bandwidth is a problem for you, you can have these for yourself to take with you anywhere you might go. They're available on for download as well, and you can purchase those or see more about them at professormesser.com/downloadable-A+. I've also got transcripts with those. All of my videos are closed captioned. You've got a lot of options there available. Somebody this week reminded me about closed captioning. We just finished up our Security Plus course, and it's all online. I had all of those closed captions done. It's great to have that there. So let's talk about today. We're going to ask questions. We're going to answer questions. And if you'd like to follow along with what we're doing, and you are, of course, here live, you can participate by going to our Socrative room and answering the questions along with everyone else. And then I will show people, you'll be able to see on the screen the questions and the answers. You'll be able to type them into either your mobile device or in a separate browser window. There's even apps you can use for Google Play, for App Store, for Windows Store. You can go right out there, download those to your mobile device. The room name you want to punch in, whether you are going online, you want to log in as a student, and you want to use the room name Professor Messer, all one word. If you do that, you'll be fine. Just make sure you recognize the spelling is Professor Messer, and you'll be fine. I can't set up multiple rooms like I do domain names, because that would be great if I did that. And if you did go out to Socrative and you typed in the right room name, you will see a question like this that asks, so how long have you been studying for this? I'm going to log into Socrative. You should get something like this. Let's see if I can show this to you. Here's the message on the screen. I'm logging in right now. That's my name. And you'll see this on the screen, and you get to click on any one of these or even multiples of these. This isn't a particular multiple choice question here, but you can put in exactly what that happens to be. And if you do that, I can then show you what the results are. I can see what people are answering. I can see how well we know the content. I've got a lot of questions to ask this week, this month, on the study group. And you can see that we have this curve. This is kind of the normal curve for the study group, isn't it? A group of us are doing between 3 and 6 months, or 0 and 6 months, kind of dies off. And then there's those of us that come back after a year or so. We're trying to get back into the study thing, and you can see more than 9 months, and 25% of you already have your A+ certification. So congratulations to you, and hopefully you can at least get some credits to stick in your back pocket as part of this. I can see the chat room as well. So we're going to follow along with Socrative as we go today. I've got questions to ask of you and things to go through, and it's going to be very important to do this as we go through today. There is a lot of questions this month came in about the A+ certification. I'm not sure exactly what rumors started that the A+ certification was going to change even before the end of the year. There's going to be a new version on the A+, and that's just not the case. The A+ certification's been out for about 2 years now, and generally it takes about 3 years to flip over to a new version. And even CompTIA said in a statement on Facebook that no, there's not a new one coming out before the end of the year. That's an unsubstantiated rumor for some reason, and it was nice that CompTIA was able to clear that up. There's 2 exams you have to take to get your A+ certification, the 801 and the 802. You can take them in any order. You can take them at any time. There's no time limit between them or a certain time that you have to take both of them, except that you do have to make sure you get both of them taken before they are retired. And as I mentioned, we're talking about into next year until we're going to see a retirement date for this. So you've got some time. If you are trying to get both of these exams done, you can start with one, and you've got well into next year before that exam is ever retired and goes away completely. But you have to take both. You can't take one of them and then the exam is retired. You would have to start all over again. Nobody wants to do that. And the 801 is about hardware and networking, laptops and printers, and operational procedures. You get 90 questions max. You might get fewer than 90 questions. And the passing score is 675 on a scale of 900. It's kind of an odd scale, isn't it? There is not a percentage that you would get associated with this. We believe every question is worth a different number of points. So they give you an accumulation of points depending on what you get correct. That's what we believe anyway. CompTIA doesn't share the specifics of the exam grading, but I think that's exactly what they do. On the 220 802 exam, you will deal with operating systems, security, mobile devices, and troubleshooting. And you have to get a 700 on that exam out of 900. Now, I'm going to go through questions from both of those exams today, so that will give us a chance to really go through and find out how much we know about topics across the board with these. So with that, I think it's time we jump into some questions, don't you? Let's do some Q&A and see how much you know about these questions from the A+ exam. And your first question is, which wireless standard operates in a 2.4 gigahertz range and has a maximum throughput of 54 megabits? Well, that's a good question. What is the answer to that? Well, I have a few potential answers for you. Answer A is IRDA. I wonder what that is. You got to know what IRDA is, I guess. 802.11a, Bluetooth, or 802.11g. So I've got a number of different technologies here for you to choose from. One of these operates in the 2.4 gigahertz range and has a maximum throughput of 54 megabits per second. And that's one of the things that we have to know for the A+ exam. both in the networking section and sort of the speeds and the distances section of the 801 exam, is these networking questions. And in this particular case, we're talking about the 2.4 gigahertz range. So we're not talking about a piece of wire. This is clearly something that is a wireless type of technology, which of course all four of these answers on the screen would apply. So I'm not exactly doing that anyway. The idea of this question and these questions is to help you understand more about where you would put certain wireless technologies. A lot of the times people will say, I have to do this, but the problem I have with going through these questions is that they are all memorization. Well, everything is memorization. You have to remember how to drive your car. How do I get on the subway again? I can't remember. Let me Google it. No, there's certain things you need to know off the top of your head. And if you're trying to size out the proper configuration for an access point, for a wireless Bluetooth device, for an IRDA device, you need to understand these things. You also need to, if you run into one of these technologies, you need to know the frequencies that they're working on, because there may be other things within the work environment that are conflicting with this. And of course, speeds is an important one to know as well. We often need the fastest technology available, so certainly we need to know the speeds for this as well. Well, if we look at the results of how we did on this one, there's a few answers that we have gotten on this one. And one of the things I like about our study groups is we get to try to go through and try to stumble through these questions. And if you don't know the question, this is an opportunity to learn. You never really understand something until it breaks or until you miss a question on an exam. So this is where we really can figure this out. Nobody bit on my infrared answer number A, and IRDA is a relatively slow transfer, certainly not 54 megabits per second, so we know it was not IRDA. Well, we have B, we got 34%. Some folks said, no, Bluetooth. 6% of you said that's absolutely Bluetooth. And 802.11g came in at 60% of the answers here. So the real question is, which one is it? We need to know. Well, let's go to our Professor Messer video that deals with the wireless technology, specifically 802.11 wireless technologies. And I have a nifty chart for you. This is also a chart that's in the study guide or the course notes that I have available for you to purchase as well. We'll talk more about those a bit. But here is the chart directly from the video. And you can see we've got a lot of different technologies in wireless that we need to know. A, B, G, N, and I'm sure there will be even more in that next version of the A+ exam. You can see the maximum theoretical throughputs of this as well. So we were looking for one that was 54 megabits per second. So we can see a couple that are 54 megabits per second, but we were also looking for one that was 2.4 gigahertz in its frequency range, and the only one that matches up to the options that we had available were 802.11g. So if you were one of the 63% of you that answered 802.11g, you would be absolutely correct. Would not be 802.11a. 802.11a does run at 54 megabits per second, so you had half of that one. You were on the right track, but the frequencies that are in use generally are 5 gigahertz. There is a special 3.7 gigahertz that you don't see in normal use. That's a special license that you would have to get to use something like that. Generally, it's a 5 gigahertz. Of course, neither of those 2.4. So it can't be 802.11a. It has to be the 802.11g. So if you chose that answer for the 802.11g, you were absolutely correct with that. Well, let's shift our efforts here from networking and let's go into other questions about doing some upgrades. So the question I have for you is this: you need to upgrade the memory. And let's go to the next slide here so I can see. You need to upgrade the memory. What if your company's computers? Which one of these would be the best way to start the upgrade process? And you have a number of options available to you. Option A would be find any memory modules that will fit into the motherboard memory slots. We know they're standard module types, so maybe that's what we should do. We should run a memory diagnostic on the existing memory modules. We're going to upgrade. Maybe that's what we should follow. On C, we could determine the motherboard model, and D is delete any temporary files and uninstall unused applications. So we've got a mix of different things to choose from with this. There is quite a bit that we can go through and choose from with this, and I quickly showed you that some people were voting there. So we've got people that are voting across the board with this. And we run into this all the time. When we have a computer that we're ready to do some updates to, we're trying to get things going with the updates, we want to be able to improve the storage in the device, improve the amount of memory that's available in the device. Maybe we've purchased the device for one particular function, and now that particular function, we need more capabilities. Now we need to do more desktop publishing. We need to do more programming. We need more capabilities. We need to do video editing. We need a lot of memory for that. So we need put more memory in the device. What do we do first? There's a number of options available to make this happen. Now, the approach we want to take with this is a step-by-step. Of course, if we need to put more memory in the device, we need to understand exactly what's going on with the memory. And if we look at the results, I really didn't fool anybody with this one. Option A was to find any memory modules that fit into the motherboard memory slots. And most of the time that won't work. Sometimes it will. If you have a lot of devices in your environment and they're all the same, you may be able to find some extra memory modules that just so happen coincidentally to not only fit into those slots, because a DDR2, a DDR3, those are going to fit into the slots because they are a standard size. But just because it fits into the slot doesn't mean that it's the right specification for the motherboard that you're using. So you can't just grab any memory and if it fits in there, it must work. That is absolutely the farthest away from the truth it could possibly be. So that would not be the best answer, to find just one sitting around and stick it into a slot and you're done with it. That's not going to work. All right, B would be run a memory diagnostic on the existing memory modules. Well, I'm not sure why we would need to run a diagnostic on memory modules that we are ultimately going to throw out or add to. We aren't having a problem with the memory. It's not having a fault of any kind. We're not getting any blue screens or messages of Windows shutting down. So we don't have a diagnostic problem that we need to worry about. So the 16% of you said run memory diagnostic, not necessary at this point. Certainly would not be a bad thing to do once you put the new memory in and you are now already running the new memory modules, but we're just starting the upgrade process. This is the first thing. If you remember, the question here says, I'm starting this process. What's the first thing I should do? The option to delete temporary files and uninstall unused applications, well, it's not going to help with our memory problems. That will certainly free up space on your hard drive or your storage device, but it's not going to help you at all with memory utilization. Remember, don't get into that trap of thinking that the storage that we have available on our computer has anything to do with memory. Those are effectively the RAM inside of our computer is referred to as the memory of our device. These days, it's a little bit of a fuzzy line, isn't it? Because now we have solid state drives that are effectively memory drives, but we're talking about those as storage. And when somebody talks about the memory in their computer, they're always talking about random access memory. And so we should make sure we use the right nomenclature when we're communicating with other people. Hey, I'm running out of memory. And some people will say that, and what they really mean is they're running out of space on their storage device. So don't mix those up. You should not use those terms. If you're running out of memory, you're running out of random access memory. You're running out of space to run your interactive applications. So D, determine the motherboard, or C, determine the motherboard model is the correct answer here, because before we can add or replace memory in a device, we need the exact specifications for that memory. What is the speed of memory that is supported by this motherboard? What other types of specifications are required? Do we need 2 modules to use at the same time? Some motherboards will require you have 2 modules, or there'll be dual buffering or triple buffering where you get the best throughput if you have 2 modules. The only way to know is to look at the motherboard information. So that is the first thing that you want to be able to do, is look at the motherboard documentation and understand what type of memory should I really be putting in here. So if you answered letter C, you'd be absolutely correct. Well, let's try to move into more of some working with preventive maintenance. Let's try to keep things clean. And if you've you've seen my office. It's good that the camera in my office doesn't show what's behind the camera. I try to keep things clean. It looks so clean here. It's because I've taken everything and kind of scooped it into my arms and thrown it behind me where you can't see any of that. We're always challenged to keep things clean with our system. So we're going to get a question about that too, which is you need to clean out the dust that's accumulated on the fans of your desktop computer. Why is it important to use a vacuum cleaner that's been designed for computer systems? Well, that's an interesting question, because why can't you just use a normal vacuum cleaner? And you cannot. And there's some very specific reasons why you should not use a traditional normal vacuum cleaner that you would have around your house. There is quite a bit that you can sort through with these. Let's have a look at what the options might be. Option A would be that non-computer vacuums don't have enough power for the computers that we're using. Computer vacuums will minimize the potential for static electricity discharges. I guess that would be good. C would be computer vacuums have a larger debris storage area. I need a big debris storage area, so maybe that's the one I should choose. And D is computer vacuums will not suck up any silicon-based materials. So this is the options we have when we're working with preventive maintenance, is dealing with power, dealing with static, dealing with storage, and dealing with what these devices will actually collect into those systems. There is a lot that we work with. There is, for preventive maintenance, a big section of the exam, a whole section of that exam, an entire topic area is on preventive maintenance. And it deals not only with preventive maintenance on the physical side, but also preventive maintenance on your computer side of the operating system itself, and being able to work with that. Those are things we want to think about as well when we're working with those. If you're working at all in technology, you want to be careful to not just keep things clean and up to date, but do it in the proper way, because it's very possible, especially on the inside of a computer, that if you use the wrong methods for taking care of those devices, that you could potentially create problems. And that is indeed the case here, is that we want to avoid creating problems whenever we're working with these devices. So nobody chose the problem with power. Not enough power? No, there's plenty of power for non-computer vacuums. That would not be the reason. They have a larger storage debris area. Computer vacuums generally, that's not our issue. We also don't have to worry that the computer vacuums aren't smart enough to know what they're sucking up. So it was not answer D, and 97% of you were not fooled at all. You said the computer vacuums minimize the potential for static electricity discharges. And that's exactly the case. When we're working with those devices and looking at using the right cleaning materials, we want to be sure that we are first cleaning the devices in a way that's not going to cause a problem. If you are going to use a detergent, or you're going to use some type of solvent, you want to minimize the use of this at all possible. Make sure you don't use one that has ammonia in it. Avoid alcohol. It will eat through some of the things, especially in the outside of your computer case, and certainly on the inside as well. There's from a vacuum perspective, we want to use one that's designed for computers. These are designed to minimize the amount of static buildup. You have all of this dust going everywhere, and if you've ever worked with a typical vacuum that you'd have at home, and you start scooping up dog hair or dirt, you'll notice that the end of the vacuum, especially the plastic pieces, have a lot of static buildup on there. These computer-based vacuums are designed to minimize the amount of static electricity discharge that would occur because of that. Some people use compressed air. There is compressed air in a can. From an environmental perspective, we tend to move away from those these days, especially since a compressed air pump is so easy to use. It's certainly better for the environment. So being able to have an inexpensive pump is a much easier way to be able to do that. There is an important consideration when you're working with these types of devices, and making sure that you're using exactly the right cleaning materials and exactly the right equipment is an extremely important part of that. Well, before we get to the next question, let me also remind you that My A+ study guide is available. This is the study guide that I make available for, I take everything from my videos and I stick it into one PDF. I have a study guide for 801. I have a study guide for 802. And I've just taken everything from the videos and put it in there. So if you're someone who you're not a very good note taker, or you've just not taken notes as you were watching the videos, and you want just one single thing to go to look at all of these notes, they're a great guide. So it doesn't replace your book, it doesn't replace the videos, but it is something that once you're finished looking through all of those and you're ready to take your exam, you can see that I took all of the things from my video. Just scroll through some of these pages here, and it's all in here. Everything that you need to know for this is the 801 guide. Everything you need to know for that guide is right here. Everything is listed and available for you in that particular view. So you can go through your speeds, your feeds, the different types of fiber connectors, the different types of wiring. It's all in this study guide. And every dollar, every bit of this goes right back to the website and keeps things running here. We've got also immediately, when you purchase this, it's immediately available for download. This is a downloadable electronic product. So it's another way to help support what we're doing here and keeping things going. And I think it's a pretty good guide to keep you going whenever you're ready to take your exam. So if you'd like to know more about that, you can go out to ProfessorMesser.com/A+SG for the A+ study guide, or just choose the links at the top of the page to be able to find those. And of course, I have study guides for A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. If I have a course, I've got a study guide for you there as well. So thanks for your support in the chat room. Thanks for your good things you have to say about the study guide as well. I love putting these things together, so it's great that we're able to take advantage of that. All right, back to our questions. We've got a lot more questions to go through, and I've been talking too much, so there's a lot more to catch up here with our timing. So the question I have is, all of the pages printed from your laser printer, they smudge and they smear when you touch the page. What part of the laser printing process is most likely to be the cause of this issue? Curses, a laser printer question. This is one of those that I get a lot about. People say, I need help with printers. That's my weak spot. So especially laser printers, if you are on this laser printer piece and you've never worked with laser printers before, it can almost be this foreign thing. So which one of these would be the problem if it smudges and smears? Would it be the developing process, the fusing process, the transferring process, or the cleaning process? One of those. It's got to be one of those problems. Of course, there's many different steps in the laser printing process. And of course, we're going to talk about those steps once we go into this. This is a section I get a lot of questions about. So people are always worried about all of the different pieces. Now, the A+ exam has a very specific set of things you need to know about printers, because you can really get into just laser printers and dive into the specifics of it. And there are technicians that do nothing but laser printer repair and troubleshooting, and there's a lot. It goes very, very deep. Fortunately, the A+ gives you just the things you need to understand about that process. And it's one that, this is a good example of things you have to know. They give a big list of problems printing, and you need to know if this problem comes up with printing, what do you do? And this is one of those problems: printing, smudging, and smearing when you touch the page once it's come out of the printer. So it's got to be one of these things that has caused a problem for us. What is the problem associated with this? And where would we start troubleshooting this particular problem? Well, to be able to answer that, we need to first look and see how you've answered. And you've got a smattering of different answers here. 3% of you have said, yep, it's developing. We've had 81% said fusing. I'm almost tempted to go with that 81%. Let's follow the crowd. We've got 11% said transferring, and 5% said cleaning. Well, it's got to be one of those, doesn't it? Let's first have a look at the printing process. There's a lot going on in the printing process. It's a 7-step process. Often people will have different things that occur first and occur last, but it's effectively the same thing, because this is a drum that goes through and cycles through a number of times just to print a single page. You know, the drum is not 8.5 by 11 in circumference. To print a page, it has to cycle through 3, 4, or 5 times, depending on the size of this drum. There is step 1, the processing is not really where we're at. We're talking down here where just before we get the page out of the printer, all of the toner that's stuck to the page has to be effectively melted and pressed onto the page so that it's there permanently. If you have any problem with this heat and pressure, then once you get the page out of the printer, you can easily run your finger across it and it smudges. You'll notice the paper's cold. Whenever you get paper off a laser printer, it comes out warm. It's toasty warm because it has just gone through this fusing process that presses the page together, adds the heat, and melts the toner right onto the page. So if you're trying to figure out why you're seeing smudging on the page, it's because the fusing process is the one that has caused a problem for you. So I didn't fool many people with that particular question. That's okay. We have plenty more questions to go through to try to fool someone. And for those of you that did answer transferring or cleaning or developing, now you know the right answer. So if that comes up on your exam, you know immediately, no, I already got that one wrong. It's fusing. It's pressing this together and fusing that information right onto the page. Very nice to have that there. Well, let's stick with printers as the collective groan comes out of the internet. I've got another printer question, and the printer question here deals specifically with this. We've got your company's shared laser printer occasionally reports an out-of-memory error. Another one of these troubleshooting things that we need to know about when we're working with printers. Which of these would be the most likely cause of this issue? Go out to Socrative.com into the Professor Messer room, and you can absolutely have a look at that, because your possible answers are that the print job has exceeded 250 pages, that the printer is not designed to support multiple print jobs, and I guess if it is a shared laser printer, there will certainly be multiple print jobs. The print job is a set of architectural blueprints, or the printer is not designed to support shared network use, and this is a shared network printer. So one of these is going to cause an out-of-memory error. And it's very specific. This is one of those times where you have to look through the question very carefully to understand what they're asking. There will always be one answer that is very obviously the correct answer. Sometimes I hear from folks who are working with the exam. They come out of the exam and say, oh, there were trick questions on this exam. There are no trick questions on the exam. I might give you trick questions, but you're not taking the exam from me. The questions on the A+ exam are very clearly written, and there are very clear answers associated with those. And you have to take every question and consider it as its own independent, self-contained question. You don't consider things outside the question that's being posed. So for this one, shared laser printer reports out of memory error. Which one of these would most likely be the most likely cause of this issue? And I use those terms very carefully. You will see this on the exam. What is the best possible answer? What is the most likely cause? One of these answers is the most likely cause. And so you want to go out to the Socrative website, go log in as a student, go to the Professor Messer room, and people are going back and forth on this one. There's a lot of debate over which one of these might be. I think some of you are Googling this one and trying to figure it out, because we are all over the place. We say the print job's exceeding 250 pages. The printer's not designed to support multiple print jobs. The print job's a set of architectural blueprints, and the printer is not designed to support shared network use, and we are everywhere. 46% of you said exceeded 250 pages. 27% of you said it's not designed to support multiple print jobs. 5% architectural blueprints. This is one of those that phoning a friend might be the idea we're going after here. Let's look at error messages and how they occur on a printer, and then we're going to come out and find out what the real answer to this was. So if we look at laser printers especially, there's usually going to be some type of code. There's usually a single line LCD. These days it's a nice big color LED on the front. It's going to have some error codes there and tell you exactly what's going on those screens on this printer. Whenever you get with printers, especially laser printers specifically, a laser printer has to build the entire page at a time inside of the printer. So it's going to take one page and effectively construct it in memory, because once it starts the printing process, it can't stop that on a page. It has to do the whole page at a time and spit out a page. It might have delays between pages, but it has to do one page, spits it out, clears the memory, prints another page, constructs another page, prints it out, clears the memory, constructs a third page, prints it out, clears the memory. So it clears the memory out after every page is printed. If you get an out-of-memory error, it's that building process that it has to go through that is going to cause any type of out-of-memory problem. It has to construct that entire page in memory. And if it's a page of text is nothing to print. It's very little memory required. But as your printouts get more complex, as there are more graphics in the printout on that single page, as the page itself, and depending on the language the printer uses, it might take a lot of different printer commands sent to it to be able to construct a very complex graphic on the page. And if you get to a point where your graphic is so big that the printer can't handle it, it will give you an out-of-memory error. So that is why when we look at these potential answers, let's go through them and see which one could be a potential out-of-memory error. The print job exceeds 250 pages. The number of pages has nothing to do with the amount of memory because it's only going to construct a page at a time. It's the single page that's our problem. So it's not A. If we went with the majority here, or at least the ones that's in the lead here, the 44%, would not be that one. It's not designed to support multiple print jobs. Printers support multiple print jobs. They do them one at a time. So of course, if multiple people are printing to a printer, there's a print queue, and we queue up those print jobs. It's as if it's printing one after the other after the other. Every printer can print multiple print jobs. It's the print server that's allowing us to be able to do that. So it's not B. That's not our issue. The printer's not designed to support shared network use. Again, the shared part of a printer is something handled by the print server. It has nothing to do with the internal memory of the printer itself, which means in this particular case, the answer is C. 6% of you got it right. The print job is a set of architectural blueprints. This is the best answer here because architectural blueprints are very complex. There's a lot of graphics and lines in them. There is a lot of text on the page, but the text on the page is really graphics. And of course, the blueprint itself can be very complex, showing electrical and showing the internals of the architecture and trying to break out where things are. It's going to be a very graphically complex output, which means that if you've ever looked at a laser printer that's having to do this, it takes a second, has to think about it. It might take even more than a second. Back when laser printers were first introduced and we would send these architectural blueprints, it might be a minute or more before a page would pop out. If you had 50 pages to print, you'd have to wait a minute as it tried to calculate and put together what that looked like and then finally print out that page. If you run out of memory in a laser printer, what you'll probably see is part of the page will be printed and the other part will be blank. So you might have blueprints on the first section of the page and then all of a sudden there's nothing. And you're wondering what happened to the rest of the printout. Well, we ran out of memory. We were able to construct this much and the printer printed those pieces out. But at that point, you run out of space and you're in trouble. So if you were the 6% of you that said the print job is a set of architectural blueprints, got that one right. Now everybody's piling on. Oh, I'm changing my answer. We're gonna go with C. Of course it's C. Why would it not have been that? That's one of those that you run into a lot. Okay, no more printer questions at the moment. Let's shift our gears a bit and go into probably another bad thing that happens on our devices is that our computer has just restarted after a Windows stop error. So this happened. We weren't there. Maybe the user is saying, hey, in my computer, there's a screen. It was blue and then it restarted. What happened? Well, we didn't get a chance to see that. So what Windows utility can provide us with the details of this most recent crash? And this is one of the things that you'll run into often because, of course, we're not at people's desks all the time looking at what options are going on the screen at every second of the day. And, of course, there's no way to roll it back and try to rewind the tape. There's nobody recording the screen, but you do have some options. There are pieces of information that are written into the operating system when these problems occur. And you can find those in one of these answers. Is it Task Manager? Is it Event Viewer? Is it Services? Is it Performance Monitor? Or is it SysInfo 32? One of these is going to have the details and perhaps even a little more information about the Windows stop error that occurred. So we're going to have to really break down which one of these it is. And this is where we start getting into trying to understand more about where we find things after the fact. We are almost always presented with these problems after they have occurred. Somebody's calling us at the help desk. We're stopping by their desk. Somebody drops off a computer and says, I had a problem. We weren't there when it happened. So we have to somehow reconstruct via CSI. We have to put back together the crime scene, and we need to collect as much evidence as possible. One of these is going to give us a lot of information that's going to be able to tell us more about what happened during that Windows stop error. Now, of course, you still have to solve the problem. You have to figure out, based on that evidence, what to do, but that's why you're the investigator. That's why they have us there taking care of these problems. So if we go look at this question, one of these potential answers is really going to tell us what's going on. And this, I think we bounced back pretty well after that printer question, didn't we? Because you can see that 88% of you said event viewer. Now, is this another situation, though, where everybody said one thing, but it was really something else? Let's have a look, because 2% said task manager, nobody said services. 3% said performance monitor, 8% said sysinfo32. So let's see what the potentials might be for identifying the Windows stop error, or as we like to call it, the blue screen of death. You do not want a blue screen of death. This is a bad thing. Of course, in the newer version of Windows, it's a little bit different screen. Something you don't have to know yet for the A+ exam. Your A+ exam, you need to know Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7. So everybody's expecting the new version may include one of these new operating systems with that piece. Somebody asked me today, hey, why isn't Windows 10 on the exam yet? Windows 10 isn't even out yet, so it's not going to be an exam at the moment. In fact, it'd be very, very difficult to be able to find those things in there as well. The information that's on this screen, though, can tell you a lot about what's causing the problem on this particular device. And if you're trying to figure out those things, you're going to need to know particular pieces of information, like what was the specific error and what file caused it. In fact, on this screen, this file was called by this particular system driver, and you can see it was a page fault in non-paged area. So knowing that, we can now go to the device driver manufacturer and say, I had this type of problem. What happened there? And maybe it's a driver update. Maybe the problem is pointing towards a sound card. Maybe it's pointing towards another peripheral device, a video card maybe that you have on your machine. This is one of those cases where this information is invaluable. And there's other information here as well. The stop error itself is incredibly useful, that hexadecimal code, because you can now cross-reference that to find out more about that particular stop error and things that you can do to help troubleshoot that particular stop error. There's a lot of memory settings and memory messages in here as well. So obviously, if that disappears, the machines are set to reboot after these blue screens of death, then you might lose all of this. But fortunately, you can, of course, go to your event viewer. That is where your blue screen of death information is going to be written. And if you go look through the event viewer, the time frame that they said it occurred, you will see an error message there that shows that a Windows stop error occurred. And all of this information that you see on the blue screen is also going to be in the event viewer. So if you were one of the 88% that said the event viewer, you will be in great shape there to be able to go through and find at least this information and help reconstruct what may have occurred in the past. Let's go to another question that we often run into. We find these particular problems whenever we are working with these devices, especially if we're working inside of the devices. So you've been asked to remove a hard drive from one computer and install the drive into a computer in another building. So we're obviously going to have to probably walk outside with this hard drive. Which of these would be the best way to transport the hard drive from one building to another? And we have a number of options available. Do we use bubble wrap so the case bumps into something, we can protect it during the transportation? Do we pack the hard drive into a box full of foam peanuts? Those big peanuts that go everywhere and are annoying and nobody likes? Well, we could stick it in there. That way we're protecting it as we're transporting it. Do we place the hard drive into a cushioned anti-static bag? And maybe that's what we do as we're moving between buildings, or hard drives, they park their heads when powered off, which is true. So we can simply use a manila folder for transport. We can stick it in anything effectively then and transport it wherever we need to go. So it's going to be one of these. So we need to think about, when we're transporting a piece of equipment like this, how are we going to do this? What is the best line of attack to be able to work with these? Whenever we start doing any type of operation inside of the computer, we certainly want to be very careful whether we are simply taking it out and setting it down next to us, or whether we're taking out and moving it to another building. We almost have exactly the same concerns, and most of those concerns are going to be around making sure there's not going to be a problem with this device once we reinstall it into wherever it is going. One of those is an important consideration, of course, is dealing specifically with electrostatic discharge. Even though the hard drive does park its heads, we do run into these scenarios where if you look on the back of a hard drive, normally I have one sitting right here, and I don't, of course, but if you look on the back, there's a circuit board that is right there that you could see on the back of a hard drive. Where is my hard drive? Certainly, I have one here somewhere. Wait, here it is. Ow. Okay. It's like a comic book around here. So on the hard drive, so you can see this hard drive, it's a 3 terabyte hard drive, Western Digital, but on the back, you can see there's circuit board. This tiny little screen that I have here. There's the circuit board on the back of the hard drive. So you want to be very careful when transporting this. It's probably not even the best way to store it, which is in a box behind me. But we want to be very careful that we don't have a problem with electrostatic discharge, because that circuit board has all of those little tiny pieces. And if we run into a problem, then we're certainly not going to have a hard drive available to us anymore. So in this case, having an anti-static bag is going to be, from the options available to us, the best one that we could choose. These bags are nice. We've got these anti-static bags that we can put things into that help prevent static buildup around these devices. So certainly external static will be able to be minimized, and inside the device, we don't have to worry too much about the static either. That's when we get into really using these devices and understanding how to protect them. And I like to, whenever I'm working with components, even right next to me, I'm pulling things out or I'm putting together a computer, I like to lay out my components on an anti-static bag if I have it there, or even an anti-static mat if it's a much larger area. Normally I'm working ad hoc. I'm on the kitchen table. I will absolutely take the anti-static bags and place things on the bags or inside of the bags as I'm working with those systems. It's one of those that really allows me to know that I'm not going to run into a problem when I'm working with those, because that's the real issue, is I don't want to have a problem once I'm now putting these things back in. I want to always make sure that I've got the same ground potential with what I'm working on my computer, and I want to be sure that everything's protected as I am working with that. Very useful to have that there. There is one of the things that we'll run into with the A+ exam is that there is these questions that you might get on the exam that deal specifically with performance-based questions. If you followed me this week, one of the things that I've done this week on my pop quiz is I have given you questions this week that are very similar to some performance-based questions you might get on the exam. Performance-based questions are not necessarily simulations. Some people think that you're going to be given a command line and everything's going to be command line based, and you certainly could get a command line question, but performance-based questions can also take other forms. They can be fill in the blank. They can be multiple listing that you have to put things in order from fastest to slowest, or slowest to fastest, or most capacity to least capacity. It will tell you exactly what you need to be able to do with that. So as you start working with these performance-based questions, it might help you to have labs available to work through as well. And one of the things I've demonstrated on previous study groups, we're running short of time here today, so we don't have time exactly to do this, but the freestyle is one that you can go to. These are live virtual devices that have labs associated with them on the net. You don't have to install any software. You don't have to do anything on your computer. You can simply go to a web page and launch servers and workstations. They're all networked together. You can go to the command line and start pinging around to different devices or using traceroute and understanding all of those tools that the CompTIA is going to expect you to know for your exam. There is an hour you can use for absolutely free. If you'd like to see this is for you. Freestyle is a special price also. If you are here coming from Professor Messer, you get a discount if you use this link at professormesser.com/freestylelabs. That will take you to the special link, and for $99, you'll have access to every single one of these for a year. And as I mentioned, you can try it for free for an hour, so you'll get an idea. Is this really for me? I mean, you could take all of those operating systems, load them up into separate virtual machines on your computers, run all of those virtual machines, and maybe come up with your own labs. Or you can use the ones that come from Freestyle Labs, be able to do that as well. Very useful to be able to have that capability there. I think there is a lot that I do with virtual machines, and this is a great way to take advantage of these virtual devices over the internet, and it also helps you with your A+ exam. Really, really useful. And we got a number of people that have gone through these labs and tried them out. And if you'd like to see what they're about, you can go back to some of my earlier study groups where I demonstrate some of them. We step through a whole lab and I show you exactly the process for powering on the devices. It's so easy. And try it yourself. Go out to professormesser.com/freestylelabs, get your free hour, see if it's right for you. Maybe that's something you can use when you're preparing for your A+ exam. We'd like to thank the folks at GTS Learning for sponsoring what we do here at Professor Messer. So let's go back to our questions. Of course, I have more questions for you. We're not done yet. Why are all the questions this month so long? This is another long one. And if you are watching this for your A+, your continuing education units, you'll want to use our special code for the month, which is hard drive. So go to the top of professormesser.com, click Contact Us, which is really me, and just send me a message that says hard drive. I'll know what it's about, and I'll send you back an email that certifies that you must have indeed watched this because you have gone all the way through this and you knew the special code word to be able to do that. Very, very useful to have that there. There are a lot of things to go through with this, and if we look at these questions, and trying to figure out these questions for our exam, we know that this is something we run into very often. We've been assigned a support ticket that urgently requests a laptop repair, but there are already many open support tickets ahead of this request. You're a very busy person. You also don't recognize the name associated with the ticket. So which of these choices would be the best path to take? And we've got a number of choices here to choose from. One of these, I'll bring up the right screen here. There we go. We can place the ticket into the queue as a first come, first served. We can contact the end user and determine the urgency of the repair. We can triage the queue and kind of look at all of the different tickets that are in the queue and maybe prioritize the tickets in order of repair complexity. Maybe take care of the easiest problems first, and you work down, get those out of the way, and work towards more difficult problems. You prioritize the support tickets by device type. Maybe desktops are the ones you do first, then laptops, and then mobile devices. Or E, do we send an email to the help desk mailing list to see, does anybody know the person who submitted this ticket? Because obviously we didn't recognize the name on this one. Well, we've got a lot to go through here to figure out what is that? What happened when we got that ticket? What is the best process to go through to make this determination? And of course, part of the A+ exam requires that you understand the best way to work with people from a communication perspective and from a professional perspective. Those are two very important sections of the A+ certification. I think this particular question certainly lends itself to asking more about what is going on here from a professionalism and a communication perspective, and that applies back to a lot of the things we do day to day, really, whether it's help desk repairs or anything else for that matter. And we've got a lot of options here. I threw in a number of different ones, but only one of these is going to be the best path to take. Again, one of those questions of the best path to take. And somebody in the chat room says, well, if it's the boss, you do that one first. Well, that's not one of the options, but it probably should be. That probably would be the best way to do it. That would be career limiting if your boss's computer was sitting around. In this particular case, you don't know the person who did it. So maybe the best answer is to ask somebody, or maybe we reassign things in the queue, or we place the ticket, or we contact the user. There's a lot of different things we can do, but one of these is going to be the best answer. So if we look at what the results might be, we've had a number of people that have answered, and we got a mix of different things. 13% said, hey, it's first come, first serve, buddy. I'm sorry that you think it's important, but I got other people ahead of you. So I know you people. I've worked with you people before. 66% of you by far said contact the end user. 5% said triage, put them in order of repair complexity, get the easy stuff out of the way first. None of you said prioritize by device type. That just sounds stupid. So of course we're not going to do that. And E, send an email to the help desk. Hey, does anybody know who this is? That's why are you sending an email to everybody asking if you know who it is? Why aren't you just picking up the phone and calling the user? Hi, got your thing. Seem kind of urgent. You seem to be a little stressed out. How can I help you? What's going on? And then they can tell you, oh, I'm presenting in front of the board of directors in an hour. I need this done quickly, or else we're going to have a problem with your funding next year. Our help desk budget will disappear. So that's one of those things. That's what you want to be able to do, is just call the user. We often don't even think about that. Just talk to somebody, pick up the phone and communicate and say, hey, I got this thing here. What's going on? And then they can tell you, well, I've got this report. It's due in a week and I need to have it done. Well, I've got a couple ahead of you. I think I'll get to yours by tomorrow. Is that okay? That's it. We're good. Or they might tell you, oh no, I have to present at least my first draft tomorrow morning. Okay, well, let me move this up in the queue and see what other resources I have available to take care of that. This is one of those situations where picking up the phone and calling somebody makes perfect sense. You don't know anything about the problem. You don't know who the user is. You don't understand the sense of urgency, but you know there's something urgent because you see it. You can almost hear it in the help desk ticket. This is one of those times where it would really help if you were able to reach out and gather more information from the end user themselves. So if you answered B, you would be absolutely correct. Let's shift gears into security, shall we? I have a security question for you, and we certainly have a section on security on the A+ exam. So if you are taking your 802, we're definitely working in a secure type environment. I would imagine that's an important part of the A+. It's going to continue to be an important part. The question I have for you is, which of these criteria does the Windows firewall use to allow or disallow network communication? And we need to pick two of these. This is one of those where you need to pick more than one. So make sure that if you are selecting these or choosing these, that you choose more than one. And you have a number of choices, of course. You have a UDP port, you have an OS version, geographic location, or application name. So if we're allowing or disallowing network communication using the Windows firewall, two of these things can be used to allow or disallow that traffic to go through your device. So this would be the place to go, those particular ones. I think that that being able to understand the security part of this is going to help you a lot, especially if you have a mobile device and you're taking that mobile device outside of your protected environment. You're going to a coffee shop, you're going to a conference, there's wide open free Wi-Fi access. Is it okay to connect to that? And if you understand how your system handles these messages coming from the outside and how they are firewalled, you will certainly be a lot more comfortable about exactly what's going on with the communication in and out. You can, of course, feel better protected if you know how this information is being allowed and how this information is being blocked. So you want to go to Socrative.com and you want to be able to choose the Professor Messer room name and answer this particular question. And if we look at how you have answered, well, there's two that have really popped out on the screen here. So UDP port, 46% said, application name, 45%. So not even the same number of people answering those two. And we've got a mix of OS version and geographic version, geographic location at 3 and 6% respectively. So if we go with what everybody said, we might choose UDP and application name. But is that really the right thing for a Windows firewall? We should probably break down how these host-based firewalls work. And if you go into the security videos and you have a look at those, these host-based devices are sitting in your operating system itself. It's not an external firewall. It's not an external device. It's part of the OS itself, which is great because whenever our operating system goes with us, our security and our protection goes with us as well. What's nice about these host-based systems and makes them pretty unique to what might be available on the outside with an external device is they know what applications you're running. They're part of the operating system. They can see exactly what you are doing. So if you're looking at port numbers and you're looking at trying to work with these, then certainly the application, the device is going to know about the applications, and it's certainly going to know what port numbers are going across the network. There are other firewalls that are available out there that are able to filter traffic based on geographic location. And there are even other firewalls that are able to determine operating system versions as well. So in this particular case, though, we're talking about a very specific firewall. It's the Windows firewall. And in this particular case, the Windows firewall focuses, one of the things that it does is focus on port numbers, in this case UDP port, and focuses on application name. And if you were one of the 45 and 43% of people that at least answered one of those, then you got it correct. Now, one of the questions that often comes up is, what if it's picked two and I picked two but only one was right? Do I get partial credit? Nobody knows. Nobody knows how CompTIA grades the exam. We don't know if you get full credit, if you get no credit, if you get partial credit. It's a mystery. So it's one of those times where you're just going to have to go with it and see. Hopefully you'll get as much credit as you can get with that piece. All right, we've got, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I've got more questions for you. And here's another one. So the question is, while working on your desktop computer, you notice the display driver configuration is set for 60 Hertz. What in the world is 60 Hertz? It's got to mean something, right? There's got to be something associated with 60 Hertz. Well, you've got a few options available, of course. If you go to Socrative.com and go to the Professor Messer room, which hopefully we're all at now, does this mean the display will update the contents of the screen 60 times every second? Does it mean that the display will output a display brightness of 60 Hertz? Does it mean the display will only work on computers that provide a 60 Hertz signal, or is this display using a power source of 60 Hertz? So it's going to be one of these associated with the display driver configuration running at 60 Hertz on my desktop computer. So CompTIA, we give you, in these questions, CompTIA tends to put a lot of things in the questions. So some of these are important, some of these are not important. It's up to you to filter out the things that are most important about these questions and which ones are not. And that's where we run into challenges with trying to find out the answer to these. In this particular case, we're dealing with a device driver configuration. It's a desktop computer, and we're seeing 60 Hertz. So it's got to be something relating to that. Now, if we go look at what the possible answers are, you've got quite a few people have answered already. And I think we can go with this one anyway, because a number of you, well, the vast majority of you, 92% said the display will update the contents of the screen 60 times every second. And this works a little bit differently depending on whether you're on a CRT or an LED type screen, but that is the correct answer. Hertz is the number of times, number of cycles of something that occurs in 1 second. So 60 Hertz means 60 times in a second. Now, interestingly enough, these Hertz and these cycles and this numerology is also something that applies to many different parts of a computer. Power is a good example, but looking at 60 Hertz in a device driver is talking about the refresh rate on the screen, not about the power frequencies that are in use. So it's not D. We know it's only work on computers that provide a 60 Hertz signal. Well, that's not exactly the reason either. They do have to be if it's providing a 60 Hertz signal to the screen, and the screen is one that is taking and can do something with a 60 Hertz signal. I guess that kind of applies, but that's not your best answer here because we're dealing with the 60 Hertz display and the refresh rate. And the brightness has nothing to do with Hertz. That's all lumens. That's all a different set of criteria entirely. That one is kind of a bad answer. It's a trick answer. So sorry, 60 Hertz has nothing associated with that. So that's one of those times that where you really have to break down the question, understand the context of the question, and go with the options that might be there. When we look at refresh rates, just mentioned this and how they work. This is the refresh of that. I mentioned CRT screens are painting the screen from the top to the bottom. So the hertz or the refresh rate is very important. For LCD displays, we really aren't repainting the screen. There's not a single cathode ray that's going down on this tube, an electron beam that is going down this cathode ray tube. This is just changing what's on the screen 60 times a second. And they do it in different ways depending on the technology you're using. There's even 120 hertz and even faster, 144 hertz LCD displays that you can get. And not everything is exactly changing on the screen. Sometimes there's just a difference between those two. You got one screen and then a little bit of a change, then another screen, a little bit of a change. That's really outside the scope of the A+. But as long as you keep in mind that a display and a 60 hertz means 60 times a second and you've got a refresh rate, that's where you should stick to for that piece. Very, very useful to know those pieces that are there. Well, that is all. So if we look at the people who answered that one, you can see you got a lot there to think about for the questions we went through for this particular months of questions. Before we finish up, though, if you're trying to figure out where do I go to get this list of things I should know, you should absolutely go get the CompTIA exam objectives. You can go to professormesser.com/objectives, or just go to the Google and type in CompTIA exam objectives. It will take you right to the page for these. You need to download these objectives and read through them. Every week, somebody comes into the chat room. Oh, I just failed my test. I didn't do well. They asked me things I was not expecting. And of course, we naturally ask, well, did you download the objectives? What are you talking about? The exam objectives tell you everything you would ever possibly need to know about the A+ exam. And for those of you that have watched these study groups, I always mention this. I'm always talking about the exam objectives. You're tired of me talking about the exam objectives, but that's the reason I do, because these are the things that people will talk about. When you download them, you'll get something like this. Here's the objectives. This is for the 22801. Tells you exactly what you need to know. Hardware, networking, laptops. It's like I stuck something in there when I was working with this on here. Get rid of that. Some annotation that I stuck on there. Printers, operational procedures. Tells you the acceptable materials, the authorized materials use policy. Links to that. And then it goes through everything you would ever need to know that is on the exam. If you know everything that's here, you'll pass your exam. No question. Now, one of the things they even say on here is that we can ask things that are outside of this list. It's one of the disclaimers they put into this. But quite honestly, they rarely do, if ever. Sometimes they'll ask questions that's out of this list just to see if you know the answer. Maybe they'll ask you a Windows 8 question. You're like, wait, Windows 8 wasn't in the list. Well, sometimes they ask these questions just to see what the response will be, but these aren't graded questions. And they mention that before you take the exam. They tell you that on the screens. The ones you don't read and you just click agree, that's one of the things they put in there. And so you can see, I'm just scrolling through as I'm talking here. Look at all this detail. So if you ever want to know what you should be studying, this is the list of things you should be studying. Go absolutely out and go to professormesser.com/objectives. Look for CompTIA exam objectives. It is remarkable how much this will help you when you get into this. All right, our last question is, what do you want to cover next time? You know, we do these every month. I get questions from you and comments from you. It's important to me that I know what our options are with this and understand more about what you would like to know. And I build all of these questions around the topics that you're asking about. And I really try to focus on those to be able to break that down. There is quite a bit when we start working with the A+ exam. There's all kinds of topics. I could sit here all day and we could run through questions. There is an enormous amount of content on this exam. And I get you about 10 questions that we go through in an hour. So I really want to focus on what you're interested in knowing about. So these answers, they pop up on my screen and I can see them on my side. You want to know about networking, about RAID. I didn't even have a RAID question this month. I think we had one last month. That would be a good one to do. A lot of people asking about networks. Those are good to know as well. This is lot of dealing with networking. I think that's one of those pieces that we can't really touch. It's hard to touch a subnet mask. So I think a lot of people are thrown a lot by masking and IP addresses and those types of things. There is a lot that we can go through. So wow, you got a lot of answers. You guys, RAM, clock speeds, cable types, OS configuration and reinstalls. Yes, keep those answers coming, and I'll absolutely grab all of these, and I'll make sure that we stick them into the list. I obviously have hundreds and hundreds of questions and topics that I get every month, and I try to summarize and get the popular ones, and then I try to grab a few from off to the side. Sometimes it's really useful to be able to grab that and work with those things too. So as we are going through and planning this for the November timeframe, we will absolutely have a look at those, and we can go through those pieces. I'll remind you that I do have these questions every day. I give you an absolutely free question every day that I write brand new every day. I personally write it and put in the misspellings myself. And you can get those every day by following me on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter. And of course, sometimes I put other things in there, trying to do more tweeting these days and give you some other information. So there's all kinds of good things there. A lot of you said, well, I can't really afford the course. I love the free videos. If you would like to help us out in something that costs nothing to anybody, go out to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. It's difficult for me as a content creator to describe how important it is to have people subscribe to your channel. You don't even have to turn on notifications. If you don't want to know every time a video is uploaded, that's fine. But this does help me when I'm working closer with the folks at YouTube, and it gets us noticed, and I'm able to do things like have these live events like this and get them to help me. They get on the phone with me and they talk me through making better videos and doing better things. And the only way they do that is to have people subscribing to it. I did an entire course with YouTube where they called me on the phone. And are you doing things right in your channel? Are people able to find the videos that you need? What can we do to make sure that your videos are laid out better? And gave me tips on those things. I wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for your help. So thank you so much for subscribing. My quick reference guide obviously is available as well. That's a financial way that you can do to support what we do here at Messer Studios and get these videos going. You can find out more about those at professormesser.com/A+SG. And of course, GTS Learning, the great folks there, are able to help us out as well with their support. And if you want to get your free hour of those online labs for freestyle, which also, by the way, include an online book, an A+ book, the GTS Learning book, and include sample exams that you can take. You can find out about that at professormesser.com/freestyle labs. I do one of these every month. The Network Plus study group is next week. You can find out when these are going to be, if I've scheduled one, at professormesser.com/calendar. So there's another place you can go to keep up to date with what's going on. Well, that brings us to more than an hour of content to be able to do this. We've gone through quite a bit in a very short period of time. If you're watching this live, stick around for the after show. If you're not watching this live, click over and watch the after show video. We take your questions and calls. We've already got people calling in and wanting to know about things. We'll take those in the next hour. Thanks for joining us for this time. We'll see you next time on the Professor Messer A+ Study Group.